So anyways, on the topic of the Capcom showcase, and that is it for fighting games, pretty much. Sorry, I didn't mean to lead into that right away. I kind of wanted to briefly talk about this a little bit. Speaking of fighting games, because this is something from Donkey, pointed out by Fighting Games Daily on Twitter. So let's just take a listen.
As long as Kuma is a playable character, then I like Tekken 8. What I really want to see from this and Street Fighter 6 and every other fighting game is a satisfying single-player mode. Fighting games today are extremely disposable. Once the online community is gone, these games cease to exist. Soul Calibur, Guilty Gear, Tekken 7, Mortal Kombat. The single player for these games is people talking.
How do you know about that?
Like, what the fuck are we doing out here? Most fighting games already have the components needed for a great single-player game. They just need to structure them in a more exciting way. As long as Kuma is a playable character...
Oh, dude, this is like looped perfectly where I'm like, wait a minute, didn't he already say that? Anyway, so, what do you think of that? Do you agree or disagree with Donkey on this one?
Half and half.
Half and half. So like what, like, could you like elaborate on that? What is it exactly that you're half agreeing and not agreeing?
Like, when you do story mode, you gotta have dialogue and
Of course,
to help push the.
yeah.
And in other stances, like sometimes when it comes to some fighting games, I mean, Street Fighter, what was it, 5 experimented with it to just launch the game without story mode, and that was a huge backlash. So they had to like kind of rush it.
Yeah, I mean, in general, like they didn't even have an arcade mode to like see. Yeah, it was otherwise. You know, remember you do like the 4 fights, and then you get that like weird like ending artwork with what's that artist's name, Bangus, right? Like it looked kind of like weird, you know, like looks like very rushed looking artwork. Yeah. But yeah, go on.
But like I understand where he's coming from, but sometimes some people like story mode over arcade mode, because arcade mode, you know, you're just seeing one person's story. They kind of want to have the overall look,
right,
of the of the entire franchise or lore of whatever game you're playing. But he is right. There are components right there,
right,
for every fighting game. It's just how do you how do you structure it? How do you put the time and effort first? Like, which one do you focus on first?
Okay, interesting. So you said,
just like, again, bringing it back, Street Fighter 5, they focused on just the 2-player aspect, not the 1-player aspect, for the first like month, and then they finally brought in arcade mode, and then they finally put in story mode.
Well, I think story mode came in first, actually, if I can recall correctly, and then they put the arcade stuff after. Yeah. So, okay, I see some of your points. Now you did say story mode over arcade mode, you said?
Something like that.
Something like that? Okay.
Because some like some players would rather play a story mode than arcade mode. You know,
right.
It's all user preference, like,
of course.
Like again, do you want to know more about the overall story of the the entire lore universe, or just want to know what happens to this character's in the long run?
So, is there a game that has an example of what you look for in single player mode or single player content in general, or is it hard to say?
Hard to say, but the first game that comes to mind where it was fun and it was very engaging.
Mm-hmm.
We're going old school, kids.
Yes.
Soul Calibur 2.
Right. Yeah. 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 No, I was thinking about that too.
Soul Calibur 2 to me is like the best example of like how to make a story mode and arcade mode and 2v1 and has all the right all the components in the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have to play what was that story mode where you had to go around the map and kill? Did you have to play
Oh
that?
yeah,
No.
I know what you're talking about. Was it like Weapon Master or something along those
Something
lines?
like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it was like did you have to play that? No.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But there was some stuff in there that you could unlock to, bring it over to like the one player arcade or the two players or that special mode where hey, you can play with all these type of weapons, but they have like a side effect to it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Any other stuff, or your that's like your main piece on that.
Main piece.
Okay, okay.
Here you go.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm kind of on that same fence where I do see where Donkey is coming from, but at the same time, what what else could you do though? Like how else can you deliver more specifically on story mode, right? Like how do you do a story mode to have less talking but more of like more action or whatever, like he is trying to kind of convey here, right? I mean, I think for the most part, I think right now, and the Mortal Kombat stuff, I think, or I should say NetherRealm in general, I think NetherRealm has like the most engaging, quote unquote, the story mode out of all the fighting games right now. And I think they've been doing a really good job making it like cinematic and all, like, whatever, like good for the casuals. But I think it's still engaging enough for anyone else to partake in it. 'Cause there is some fighting to it. Um, I don't know. Yeah, it is a bit tricky because as much as I would like to see that this type of stuff, because I do like lore in my video games, so including fighting games, of course. I mean, for me, when it comes to engaging single player content, I kind of prefer something like you kind of brought up, like Soul Calibur 2, or some sort of like arcade mode for each character where you go through the 7 fights, and then or some 7 stages or whatever the hell, right? And then and Street Fighter did this too, like where you go through arcade mode and then you like go through this bonus stage and then you like destroy the car or do the barrels or whatever, right? You parry the barrels and third strike or whatever the heck that was. Um, like stuff like that. I kind of prefer like the old school stuff, like arcade mode. You go through it and then you see the characters like endings and stuff like that. That's like classic shit for me, where I can gravitate more towards if you want to have engaging single player content, you know. And I think it'll be a reasonable amount because it's like, yeah, obviously you just go through each character and then bam, that's it, right? I don't think there needs to be an everlasting single player content for fighting games specifically, but see, when it comes to story mode stuff too, like he kind of complains about the talking thing. I mean, again, what could you do? Like, of course people are going to be talking, you know what I mean? Like just from that alone, like if you look at it from like in a vacuum, it's like, huh, So you don't want characters to be talking, it sounds like, but obviously you need to
Yeah,
have
it's
some
like
sort of dialogue, right? So
I don't know. It's like, do you want dialogue or do you want actual characters talking to each other, or do you want to read? Pick.
yeah, that's what I'm kind of confused about with that point too. So it's like, um, maybe like in Tekken 3, they had the Tekken Force thing. So it's like a beat 'em up. You like go through like stages, you beat up bad guys, right? Like, it's kind of like Final Fight slash all the other like beat 'em ups, arcade beat 'em ups, but thrown in for Tekken. I kind of wish they do that for Tekken 8. I think it'd be pretty cool. To bring back Tekken Force. I think that'd be pretty sick. Is it janky? Sure, but was it fun? Yes. But so I think that's one way to do it for Tekken specifically. But
Yep.
at this point, I mean, with right now how they did it for Tekken 7, like I don't mind dialogue and I don't mind the cinematic stuff. I don't mind just like sitting back, and look at stuff. You know what I mean? Like, um, yeah, it's a video game, but I don't personally mind sitting back for a little bit and then do some action. But when it comes to like Guilty Gear, it's kind of infamous because that's all you're doing. You're just sitting back, right? Um there's no fighting. You don't do fighting at all in a fighting game, right? So that's kind of ridiculous. So that's like too much dialogue. I can if he specifically brought up Guilty Gear as like a problem, then it's like, okay, I see what you're coming from. But you're just saying, oh, characters are just talking. You know what I mean? It's like, well, how else you're supposed to tell the lore, right? How else you're supposed to deliver like the storyline, right? So I kind of don't get that part, If he said like, oh, I want a little bit of talking, but also more action, right? Okay, I can kind of see where that is going. But he kind of just said, all they do is just talk, It's like, okay, I mean, there's a lot of video games that do a lot of talking too, like, right? Especially with Yakuza. Yakuza, yeah, like that absolutely has a lot of talking, for a game that has a lot of action as well. So it is tricky though for fighting games nowadays to please people and to like keep them from to play the game, to keep them in. But there comes a point where they're gonna stop playing it. It's inevitable. So I'd say, right, just make just make whatever you can, make it fun, right? Make those hours they're willing to put into this game fun, right? Just make the most out of it. Make the if you can only make 8 hours of content, I think you should just make those 8 hours the greatest 8 hours of content they can ever experience, right? For a fighting game. I think that's one way to put it, maybe. So I mean, I think that potential could be fulfilled with Street Fighter 6. I mean, they're gonna have that whole like open world thing and all that stuff like they've been showing off. So maybe that could be a start of what Donkey is looking for, right? There's stuff to do. You can go around and collect some moves, customize your avatar, go around and check out the world of Street Fighter. And yeah, I think that's it could be potentially one of the better single player sort of modes for a fighting game for in a long time in a modern setting like this, in a modern generation like this. Otherwise I'm old school, so I don't mind a whole like arcade mode, go through it. Oh, you see the ending and stuff like that. I don't mind that, right?
Yep.
Have you ever gone through a Guilty Gear story mode at all?
To be honest, the last one I did was back in the PS2 era.
So you never seen the Strive? No,
Sure.
not even Strive. Exert. Have you like the Exert stuff?
Exert. No, because I skipped Exert.
Oh, okay. So yeah, because that kind of story mode that's where it started. So if you look into Strive, they also do the same exact thing. and like the way they do it, it's like it's just all dialogue. Like there's no action. There's no game within that story mode. It's like watching a Netflix series, except that a lot of the cutscenes are like stiff because they just do the default animations and they do the default walk and stuff like that, and they have the text box and everything. So it's kind of like going through like almost like a story quest in like JRPGs almost. You know what I mean? Like especially in like Bandai games where they're just kind of just standing around and talk. There's a lot of that in Guilty Gear story in those story modes in Guilty Gear, unfortunately. I think that is the extreme when it comes to dialogue only, right? So that's like the bad parts of the dialogue only kind of story mode. I feel like they.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was agreeing with you. Like,
yeah,
you kind of do want like the story and then some sort of like playable content in there, and then pick it up from there.
Yeah.
How do you
yeah.
balance it? I guess
Balance it out, yeah. Like kind of like that's how I'm saying. Like Mortal Kombat is like the best one because they have both the dialogue, the cinematic stuff, and the fighting and stuff like that, the actual fighting. And when it comes to Mortal Kombat, it's all like animated, right? They actually have uniquely animated scenes. Unlike Guilty Gear, they use like default animations, default sound effects, default everything for most of them. And then they have the actual like in-game animated like or CGI animated or whatever you want to call it cutscenes. They actually do some like cool stuff besides just standing around and stuff. Mortal Kombat is all like uniquely animated. They're not using you're not using default animations to do this one action or whatever, or this they're not like they don't have that same default generic walk cycle, right? They all have like a unique walking thing because they individually animated those scenes, right? So because obviously it's highly budgeted. They put a lot more budget into the story mode than Guilty Gear would with their story mode, So it feels more like watching a JRPG playthrough than on YouTube than like actually looking at a movie or anything like that. Or it's like a weird thing between like a Netflix series but also a JRPG story cutscene, right? A default story cutscene. Mortal Kombat, on the other hand, actually feels like watching a movie, like a 3D in-game movie, because of how it's like animated and stuff like that. So I say they should aim more towards that, more and more. But I think Street Fighter 6 will potentially be able to like break that mold and like be able to do something fun for fighting game story mode or single player content, I should say. So I think overall Donkey has his points, but at the same time there are some weird sort of like like there are some points to that you can disagree to, right? So I don't think there is a black and white answer for fighting games right now when it comes to that, but it is an issue, definitely. I think we can both agree that there is an issue with fighting game single player content as of right now. Especially with Street Fighter 5. That was super fucking abysmal. That was really bad. Because all you had was survival mode, and even that survival mode was like awful. So let me see if there's any like interesting comments or anything like that.
It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, he brings it up too. This guy here, Zexa, says, I feel like the argument of single player content just being talking is bad. Isn't that all story mode is? Yeah, that's exactly what we were pointing out. Plus, I don't I don't know really how companies can expand beyond just a standard arcade tower system or rogue system like Blaze Blue, Central Fiction, Grimoire, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think he has a point as well, you know, because he's arguing against the whole like arguing against Donkey's point of, oh, they're just talking. It's like, well, isn't that what a lot of cutscenes are anyway? They're just talking. You know what I mean? Like in video games, they're talking. Like what? Okay. Like yeah. Like I said, like we understand that single player content is a problem in fighting games, but to argue that, oh, these story modes are just talking is like, well, how else do you want to deliver the story mode then? Like just fighting? You know, it's not really called story mode if it's like just fighting. It's like, what are you trying to tell here? What's the story?
I know, it's like, sir, I think you, I think it's like to that point, like, sir, I think you're mixing up arcade mode and story mode.
Yeah. I think he's going to, yeah, I think that's an extreme. Yeah. Like, oh, this is talking. It's like, okay, you know? Like I said, like Yakuza does that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, here, please look up the definition of of what story is.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go back to like olden times. How did you know about these like mythical creatures and stuff? Story. Someone told you.
Mm-hmm.
They read it from a story book. Mm-hmm. What a concept, everybody.
Yeah.
We can also chuck it up to like him probably just breathing saying, you know, hot air or something like that.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it is Donkey, so Donkey always loves to like sort of stir the pot to like get something going, because that's what it's a lot of his content is. It's just to like prod at people, you know, like kind of stirring the pot or prod at people to get them talking about something. He just says, you know, oh, Sonic games suck, and then, you know, the Sonic fans come in and yeah. Like exactly.
He just waits and goes like and just like laughs like, I triggered you guys.
Yep.
I triggered you guys. Mm-hmm. That means I'm better. It's like, no.
Right. That I think that's partially what's going on too, but he still has a point. Let's put it that way. So
he still has a point, but it's kind of done untactfully.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
It's like, we understand where you're going with this, but it's not probably like the right way to do it or say it, something like that.
There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. So